a successful businessman who plans to run against Wes Moore to be the Democratic nominee for governor. As Ed Hale ramps up his candidacy, he says one of his primary campaign issues will be improving public education. He recently spoke with Project Baltimore's Chris Papps about what he wants to change.
The report came from my teacher, said, "I wish you would speak to Edwin concerning his behavior in class."
Ed Hale, in 1958, was in 6th grade in Baltimore County Public Schools.
The response from my mother: "I'm sure you will see a change in Eddie."
And one lesson he learned that year was so important, it's framed on his wall.
Loosely translated, punishment came in big heaps, so there was a turnaround right there.
Why do you have your 6th grade report card in your office?
Well, I believe it's emblematic of you need some discipline.
Hale, a businessman who owns the Baltimore Blast, an indoor soccer team, is now 78. And last month, the Democrat announced he plans to run for governor against Wes Moore, with education a key focus of his campaign.
I don't think the schools are doing a good job for the students today.
To improve public education, Hale says he'll focus on these 4 areas. The first being discipline. In 6th grade, Hale says he was heavily reprimanded by his teacher and parents for his bad behavior in school. There were consequences. He says the discipline he received established a precedent that lasted his entire life. And today's students, he says, are not learning this lesson, and it's doing them a disservice.
I believe that getting down to the fundamentals is very important. Discipline is lacking.
What's also lacking, Hale feels, is an emphasis on getting students involved in the trades, carpentry, plumbing, or HVAC.
I believe that the trades are ill-represented. So why not take the schools and let these, use the schools, get these people trained and have them get out with no debt and making a lot of money.
Next is accountability. Hale says school administrators must have the ability to fire low-performing teachers and reward good teachers. Currently, he feels there's too much red tape and regulations that keep low-performing teachers in the classroom.
The administrators, I would believe, should be able to walk in and say, you're really not a very good teacher. We're going to send you back to school, or we're going to have you leave because you're just not a good teacher.
The final area of Hale's focus will be the blueprint for Maryland's future, the state's massive education overhaul that pumps billions of additional tax dollars into public education every year.
I think it's implausible. It's just a bad business deal that has been thrust upon people.
The blueprint passed in 2021 when Maryland's legislature overrode a veto.
The veto is overridden.
From then Governor Larry Hogan. At the time, Hogan said the blueprint was unaffordable.
Correct.
Hale largely blames the blueprint's spending mandates for Maryland's recent tax increases and the state's credit downgrade by the financial firm Moody's.
You don't have the money. The state is in a deficit right now, and we're not going to be able to afford to do anything.
Hale told Project Baltimore he feels the blueprint needs to be adjusted. The financial instability the blueprint has already created in the state, according to Hale,
we don't have the money to do it,
will only get worse if the blueprint's spending levels are not addressed.
You got to just go in there and see what you live according to your means, and we can't do it with that blueprint that's been set forth and voted on. And the people say that's a good thing. How can it be a good thing if you can't afford it?
The primary election, where Hale plans to challenge Governor Wes Moore, will take place in June 2026. Project Baltimore will be following that race closely to see how the different candidates plan to spend your tax dollars on public education. I'm Chris Papst, and this is Project Baltimore.
He is a successful businessman who plans to run against Wes Moore to be the Democratic nominee for governor.
As Ed Hale ramps up his candidacy, he says one of his primary campaign issues will be improving public education. This morning, Project Baltimore's Chris Papps joins us now to discuss what it is he wants to change. Good morning, Chris.
Good morning. So Ed Hale, local businessman, as Megan mentioned, about a month ago said that he was going to run for governor in the Democratic primary against Wes Moore. Well, next month, he plans to officially sign the paperwork to make that happen. So Project Baltimore reached out to him because we're interested in how he views public education. And he told us that there are 4 main aspects of public education that if he were governor, that he wants to change. Those are discipline, the trades, accountability, and the blueprint for Maryland's future. So real quickly, discipline, he's saying that kids in the school today are lacking discipline. And that is one of the main things we hear from teachers and other classroom aides and educators is that the kids are running the school. The kids can largely do whatever they want. He wants to change that. Trades, plumbers, electricians, HVAC, things like that. He's like, we need to get more people involved in that. We need to actively recruit in school for kids to get involved in that so they can get out of high school, have a trade, no college debt, start making money. Accountability, he's like, principals have to have the ability to get bad teachers out of the classroom quickly and get better teachers in there. Right now, you know, there's a lot of red tape. There's a lot of issues with, you know, union strength and teacher tenure of getting bad teachers out of the classroom. He goes, that's got to change. Bad teachers don't help anybody. And the blueprint for Maryland's future. We've been covering this for years. The massive educational spending increase, public education overhaul in the state, first vetoed by Governor Larry Hogan, overwritten by the legislature. Hale is saying it's simply too expensive. Great idea, but we can't afford it. Everybody wants a really expensive car, but if you can't afford it, you can't afford it. And he's saying we got to scale it back. We can't spend as much money. And he is blaming the recent tax increases, the budget deficit, and the Moody's financial credit downgrade of the state on the blueprint for Maryland's future, something he said was simply a monetary overreach by the legislature. He wants to roll that back and not spend as much money.
Chris, can you do that? Can you just roll it back? We've seen all of these Maryland counties making adjustments, changing their budgets to be able to afford it. What would that look like?
Well, if you're going to change the blueprint, it's a state law. So the legislature has to vote on it, and they have to change it. Now, as far as the things that you're mentioning, Megan, Carroll County, for example, Carroll County can't afford the blueprint. They can't implement the mandated requirements for it. So they requested a waiver from the state to not have to meet the blueprint requirements, and they got that waiver. So I think that's something that you're going to see a lot of different jurisdictions do. There's only 24 school jurisdictions in the state. At least one of them has a waiver. I'm sure the other ones are going to follow suit and do the same thing. So on an individual basis, it can happen. But if you're going to change the overall law, like Ed Hale wants to do if he were to become governor, he would have to have the legislature vote for that, and he would have to sign it because it is a state law.
All right. Interesting to see how that would play out. Chris, thank you.